Hello, this is the last session of the collage course, and today we're going to be looking at repetition and pattern. Today I'm going to be showing you and demonstrating simple leaf shapes that we're going to cut out of your various decorated papers, and I'm going to show you how to make a wet in wet background using watercolours or analinki. Also then working back into your leaf shapes or whatever it is you decide to do, and with marker pens, and we're also going to be using some acrylics and Tipp-Ex pens if you have one. These, I say, I'm going to be demonstrating leaves, but later on you will see a slideshow of other ideas that you might like to try. Now, before you start and decide what colour you want to make your background, it's going to be a good idea if you look through your decorated papers and choose the most successful ones that you'd like to use, and maybe think about your colours. Okay, so thinking about contrast is really good. So I've deliberately decided to make my leaf shapes in blues and purples, predominantly blues and purples, and then have a contrasting background using oranges and yellows. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate creating a wet in wet background now. I'm going to be using analinkis, but you can use watercolours or inks, or even really watered down acrylics would work fine, or poster paints, just as long as it's quite runny so that you can allow the paint to flow a little bit. First of all, I'm going to be thoroughly wetting all the paper. This will allow the paint to run a little bit more and sort of one colour seep into another, which gives you a really nice effect. I'm going to be demonstrating creating a sort of yellowy orange background. As I say, I'm going to be using most of my leaves sort of purples and blues, which will make a nice contrast. I think orange and blue is always a lovely combination. Yellows and purples work really well together. Reds and greens, if you think of opposites, the opposite colours. Or you may want to sort of be more subtle about it. You may want to just use sort of leaf shapes, leaves that are greens and shades of green, or even shades of autumn colours. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I've thoroughly wet my paper. Now I'm going to start off. These are really strong and as vibrant as you're going to see, but I'm just going to roll my brush around, and later on I'm going to lift this up and let it flow around a little bit. Okay, so I'm just making sure I've got a bit of colour on there. That's it. And I'm going to come in and I'll start adding some oranges in here. Lovely vibrant colours. I'm also going to start putting little bits of red in as well. Just a few little bits of areas here. Okay, I'm now going to start leaving this to run. I'm going to start getting this to run a little bit if I can. Let it run a trick. I'm just going to put a little bit of water, just water on it, plain water, and that will just allow it to seep and run a little bit more. Just allow it to start doing. Just aware that I've got quite a lot of white edges still, so what I'm going to do, I would like the colour to go all the way over here, so I'm just going to put a little bit of colour on those edges. That's better. Don't want the white. And at this stage you can flick if you want to as well. I'm flicking some yellow on, and I'm going to get some orange. some red. Then I'm just going to allow that to run and trickle a bit more. And then you can always go turn it the other way so it seeps the other way a little bit. Just be patient with it. Allow it to run and flow. That's when you get the nice things happening. Right, I'm just going to add a little bit more colour to a couple of areas that I'd like to be a bit darker. Just going to let that run a little bit more. Just adding a little bit more orange now. You can keep on building up and layering this paints until you're happy. I might just drip a little bit of water in a couple of areas, just to break the paint up a little bit. I might then allow that to run through again. At any stage you think, oh, it's got a bit too dark, or colours are mixing together and you're not happy with them, you can always get just a tissue and actually dab a little bit if you want to, sort of lift some of the colour out. Just going to put a little bit more there. That's a little bit more red. Just trying to create an interesting surface, really. A lot of this is going to be covered up with your collage, but you don't want any areas you're not happy with that you have to hide, so you try and be happy with it before you start. This makes it a lot easier. There, I think that's fine. And I'm going to dry this off now and then come back and show you the next stage. Now I've dried this off with a hairdryer, so it's nice and dry, and as you can see, it's lovely and bright and zingy. I would quite like, I think, to just tone it down a little bit, so I'm going to use some diluted bleach in a little spray. It's 50-50 water and bleach, and I'm just going to very lightly give that a spray. Give it a chance to work, and it sort of tones it down slightly, and you get a few nice little speckles appearing where the bleach takes the colour out. I'll just hold this a bit close to the camera so you can hopefully see. Can you see, hopefully, the sort of surface it creates? It creates a lovely speckled surface, which is really quite pretty. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. I've had that sort of just toned it down a little bit and added a bit more interest. Okay, so what we're going to do now is think about your leaves. Okay, so before you start, I think once you've got your background painted, sorting through your papers and actually looking at maybe categorising them into sort of colours. These I've tried to select papers that are interesting but also predominantly sort of got purples, pinks, blues in them. Okay, what you can then do is start actually holding them against your background to see if you think they will work once you if you cut shapes out and paste them on. Okay, any of you think, oh no, that's actually no good, then just discard that one and put it to one side. Okay, so that's the next stage, and then you need to think about creating your leaf shapes. Next decision you need to make is thinking about what sort of shape and size leaf you want to make. On this one, all the leaves are more or less the same shape and size really. There's a little one there sort of in the gap, but most of them are roughly the same size and a similar shape. Now on this one, the shapes vary slightly. I've got a sort of slightly more roundy sort of shape and a slightly more elongated long oval shape here. I've also got a little one that's got more slightly spiky edges. So look at some leaf shapes, decide what you'd like to do. I'd keep it simple, just simplify the shape. You don't want to make it too complicated. And then what you need to do is decide about cutting out your leaves from your paper. Now you may find it easier to make yourself a sort of template. So I've actually just here just to demonstrate cut out sort of slightly more roundish one and a long one, similar to the shape and size on here. Okay, so what you can do then is you can just take some of your decorated papers and actually place these on. Think about some interesting sections that you would like to use, identify those. You can place your template on, just draw around it and cut out your leaf shapes. Or you can just draw it freehand, whichever you prefer. I mean, I use both actually. I tend to sort of mix and match a little bit. Cut out your shapes. I would recommend for an A4 size piece of paper, I prefer to use odd numbers rather than even, but this one's got 11. So I've cut out maybe one or two more than you think you need, because the next stage, once you cut all your leaves out, we're going to play around with making different compositions till you're happy, and then we can start sticking them down. So I always say make a couple of extras. So if you cut about 13 leaf shapes out, probably be about right, and then you can play around and you might want to discard one or two. Now here are all my leaf shapes ready cut out, so just so that you can see, I've tried to select a nice different range of papers with different, some have got actual quite definite patterns on, some have got splodgy bits of bleach on, others are a bit more subtle. And the ones that are a bit more subtle, obviously you need a few that haven't got too much pattern on, because remember we are going to be working on these later with other media, sort of, as you can see, to work on and build some more pattern. So you don't want them too busy, otherwise you might sort of find it difficult to add too much more pattern on the top. So get all your leaves cut out, and then I'm going to show you how to sort of think about arranging them. Now, a really useful tip that I do when you're thinking about placing your leaf shapes is to place them in different ways, play around with them, and then take photographs, which is what I've done here. So I've taken a photograph here. I've got all the leaves facing in different directions, overlapping. Here they're all facing the same way, slightly rearranging them each time. And here I've got a third option, which I actually decided I much preferred. So thinking about an interesting arrangement of your shapes, but also thinking about the colours and patterns already on your papers, having a good sort of interaction between the different ones, not having something too similar together, really. I think that's the key. Okay, so that's my photograph, which obviously most people have got phones now with cameras on, or I've just done this and sort of printed them up on the computer. And here is my arrangement. I haven't actually stuck these down yet, but as you can see, this is my photograph and this is very similar. And I did find actually, when I was placing these on, I thought some of the leaves were slightly too large for my piece of paper. So what I've done, I've actually put them in the same arrangement, but I've just trimmed them slightly, so they're very slightly smaller than when I first cut them out. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to need to get them stuck down. I'm just going to be using PVA glue, okay, and a glue spreader, or Pritt stick will be fine, or even wallpaper paste as before will be fine. What you want to do is, I've got my photograph printed off as reference, or if you've got it on your phone, that's a really good idea. If you haven't and you're really worried you're not going to think about how to put them back in the same position again, what you can do is carefully sort of draw around them while they're still outlined on the paper, and then hopefully take them off and try and put them next to you in a similar position next to you on the side here. Then you can take one and sort of overlap them in the same order. Obviously the last one to go on will be the one right on the very top, obviously. Okay, so I'm now going to get these stuck down and then talk to you about working back into them. All stuck down now and nice, and I've left it to dry, and now it's ready to work back over. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some decoration to some of those leaves now, a bit like this one. We're going to add some different decoration using acrylic paints. I'm going to be using acrylic paints, Tipex pen, and also a little bit of bleach, and we're going to finish off using a marker pen. If you haven't got a marker pen, even a black biro would be absolutely fine for this, or even a coloured pen. You don't have to use black at all. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to be first of all showing you, if you have got some papers where you've used anilinki or inks, you can use bleach. So I've got some bleach in this jar. This is neat bleach, actually, not diluted like in the spray. And just take a cotton bud, or you could use a fine brush if you wanted to. I'm going to identify some areas here. I think I'm going to have a little go at working on this one. So I'm just going to come, sorry, my head's right in the way. Just come in and actually just do some dots here with the bleach, and hopefully that will start taking some colour out. You can't see it immediately, actually. It's just starting to work. I can just see it starting to work, actually. Need a little bit of time for it to start to come through, and I will start to see some little dots appearing. Okay, so that's that. Hopefully you can see that just now it's starting to lift out some colour, and I'm getting some dots appearing here. Okay, so that's one way. You can use a cotton bud and some bleach, or a fine brush and some bleach. The other way you can put some decoration on is using a cotton bud with paint. I've got some selection of paints here. I'm just limiting myself. I'm using white, 2 shades of blue and a magenta. So I'm using cyan blue, which is a lovely sort of turquoisey blue, ultramarine, and magenta, which I'm going to mix to make purple. So I'm going to have patterns on here with purples, blues and whites. I think I'm just going to sort of keep it as a limited palette. So I'm going to be using the cotton bud, and I'm going to place that in the white paint, and then exactly, you can see the bleach has worked a bit more now. Hopefully you can see, can you see these dots appearing now? It takes a few minutes, so you need to be a bit patient. That's there. So I'm going to be going on doing some colour with a little bit of this. Now where shall I go? Ooh, I think I will go over this one. So I'm going to be putting some dots around with this one, just adding to those. And hopefully you'll see that you can just get quite a subtle pattern by putting some of these little dots on and just making that a bit more interesting. There we go. All right, so you can just see I've actually just added, quite similar to the bleach actually, I've just added with a paint there, actually doing and adding a bit more pattern here. Now, another thing that's actually quite nice is if you've got these little sponge applicators, these work quite nicely. What I'm going to do is actually create some colour using one of these now. Okay, so I'm going to get some of the cyan blue and put on here. And a good idea is to have a piece of spare paper just to practice, just to check it's okay before you actually put it on your image. That seems to be working okay, so I can now go on and I'm going to put some circles on here. You can see I've sort of put a more surface pattern on that one. I'm now going to mix up a darker purple, ultramarine, and some of this magenta. Nice dark purple, and I'm going to use that on my cotton bud. There. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just trying to make some slightly bigger dots this time. I'm going to show you practicing on the scrap first, just coming in and actually just going round and round. Just coming round and actually round and round, and just making some slightly bigger dots. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just have a little go and do that on one of the leaves. I think I will go for this one here. Yeah. There we are. Got some pattern on that one, and now I'm just working my way around and actually going to put some pattern wherever I think it will make the leaf look more interesting. So this one up here, for example, I think I'm going to go in and put some bleach on that one. This one here and this one I need to actually put some more patterns on with paint, so I will just do that and come back and show you. Okay, so I've just added a few more dots using a cotton bud to these two leaves with purple and magenta acrylic, and now I'm going to switch to the Tipp-Ex pen. And you just want to check it's working, so you do need to squeeze these as you're using them. You could use white paint, which is absolutely fine if you haven't got a Tipp-Ex pen. And what I'm going to now do is actually draw some circles and work on this leaf here. So what I'm going to do is actually take this and actually squeeze in the pen. Sorry, I'm trying to do it without getting my head in the way. I'm just going to draw some circles randomly on here. They're a bit wiggly wobbly, but that's fine. I don't mind that. So I've actually drawn some circles on this one. This one here, I think I may actually just do some dots. So I'll turn it round so it's easier for me to get at. And I'm just going to squeeze and do some dots. But I say you could just as easily do this with white paint. Okay, so I'm going to dry this off now, and then we're going to talk about coming in and working and doing the veins and the outside patterns on the leaves. I just realised I haven't told you about actually one of the things, just noticing what I've done on this one here. On some of these areas I've actually worked back over some of the pattern with the Tipp-Ex pen as well, which I'm just going to do first before I go on and do the other markings. So I'll just show you here. So for example here, it's quite nice if you get your Tipp-Ex pen, or again I say you can use cotton bud, which is fine, and some paint. You can work back over. I might do in here as well a little bit. Sorry, my head's getting in the way. I'm very sorry. It's quite hard to do this without bending over. So that just makes it a bit more interesting. The other thing I could do, which I have done on here, I'm just going to show you this one again, is if you've got any leaves that are quite dark, instead of using the black marker pen to do veins, you could actually use paint or the Tipp-Ex pen to do some of the veins lightly. Good idea before you start thinking about veins is actually maybe you might want to lightly pencil on where the centre of the leaf is going to be, and if you are doing veins, it might be an idea just to sketch them on first so you sort of know where you're going. This one here, I'm going to turn it around so I can get to it easier. Make sure this is dry. Actually, I don't want to lean on all this. Actually, I'm going to just dry this Tipp-Ex off, because if I lean on it with my arm, I'm going to make a horrible mess. I'll just quickly dry that. And right, just dried that Tipp-Ex quickly so I don't smear it all with my arm. Now, I just wanted to work on here, and actually what I thought I'd do on this darker leaf is a bit like I've done here. I'm actually going to use a Tipp-Ex pen and actually do the sort of centre veins and some dots around the edge with the Tipp-Ex pen before I start. So I find it easier to work this way towards me. So I'm going to take the pen, check it's working fine before I start. Oops. And then I'm just going to draw a line through. And that's a little bit wiggly woggly, so I just need to just refine that slightly. That's a little bit better. And I'm also going to do some little dots around the edge. Here we are. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to dry that off and then show you using the black marker pen. Now I'm going to complete the patterns by where I've got some of the white, I'm just going to work around and add a little bit more detail using a fine liner marker pen. I say if you haven't, you can use a black one, a coloured one if you want to. A gel pen would be fine. You can use a biro, it would be absolutely fine as well. Okay, so I'm going to just work around some of these areas. Okay, so I'm just going to can see I'm just, hopefully you can see that I'm just adding a little bit more detail here. I put a circle in the middle and I'm working around with little dots around the edges as well, just to make the pattern a bit more interesting. So it's a bit like doodling really, just work your way around and add further detail where you think it's needed. Now I'm going to carry on doing that on the leaves, and then I'm going to show you on this one. Actually, I'll just show you on this one where I've got the white veins. I'm going to actually draw either side of those veins, and what you can do, if the lines are a little bit wiggly wobbly, you can go over the line very slightly and you can edit it a little bit. And I'm going to do some dots down here as well, just to make that a bit more interesting. There you are. That sort of hopefully you can see that's just made that a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to work my way around and actually add detail to all the patterns on all the leaves. Okay, well I've finished adding all the sort of surface decoration now and refining it with a black pen, and now it's a matter of coming in and deciding where you want to put your veins on your leaf. you look at this one, they're not all the same. Some of them have just got little veins coming around the edges, and some of them have got see the veins coming right from the centre of the leaf. Okay, and this one I've made a little bit more pointy. Okay, so what we're going to do, I've already sketched on with a pencil, lightly sketched on the middle of the leaf. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down with a marker pen. At this stage, you also need to decide if you're going to go around your pattern or straight through. Okay, I've decided to go around the pattern so that the veins look as if they're underneath the pattern rather than over the top. Just making that line a little bit thicker. I will then come and show you how to do the edge. So I'm now going to come round. I'm actually going to just with a pen work all the way round this leaf, but then I'm going to beef it up a little bit. And you can see already how much that makes that stand out. And at this stage I need to think if I'm going to put any veins coming through down into the centre of the leaf. So I'm going to come down, put a few veins coming down here. Okay, so that hopefully you can see added a bit more detail to that one. And I'll just show you doing the same on another one. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to come through, and actually this time I'm going to put the vein right over the top of the pattern. I've decided on this one, so I'm going to go all the way through over the top. Beef that up a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to come around and actually do some shape on the outside. Now I haven't actually drawn any shape on, but what you can do as you're going around is you can add some shape to this. So I'm going to come in and actually just put some little bits coming around like this. There, and hopefully you can see that's added the detail onto that leaf. And you're just going to work your way around and actually put the veins and the outside is sort of design on each leaf. And then you need to decide if you're going to put some stems on. Obviously a lot of the leaves that you won't be able to see the stem, but if you have got to see the bottom of the leaf, it's quite nice maybe to put a little stem coming down. So I'm just going to finish this one off and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here's one I've now finished. I've put all the black lines on around the edge. I've also filled in all the veins. And as you can see, I think it makes it stand out against the background really nicely, putting in those black lines. This is the one I did earlier as well, and you can see makes a lot of difference, I think, and really finishes it off. Now I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have some fun experimenting and trying this out. There's going to be a slideshow next of some other images of other things you might like to try if you don't want to do the leaves.
If you've enjoyed this course, please fill in a feedback form on our website to help show our funders these courses are valuable. Details coming up now. Bye!